right. I'm going to make sure that we're live. Okay, we're live. So we're going to cut this beginning part out, but we wanted to make sure that YouTube gets it all because we've been having a problem with YouTube cutting off the first part of our stream because we didn't actually go live when it says we're live. So, all right, you ready?
Because YouTube is kind of a jerk.
Yeah, so we're going to do a little quick countdown. You ready?
5.
Okay,
4.
5. Hold on. All right, we need to... Hold on, let me do it. I'm the producer.
All right.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome once again to a very special episode of Recording in Progress, where we are going to take a little moment and we're going to slow down two very popular movies based off of iconic franchises that have played this weekend, and so we can all get a little progress on our lives here. So with me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, Jim the Jesus. How's it going, Jim?
I'm recovering. From last night, because last night I saw a movie, and it was a cringy shit show, and it appeals to absolutely no one, and it just shits on its 40-year legacy. But it had good music. It had really good music, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Wait, Jim. We're not talking about cats.
I know.
Oh. So yeah, we're going to be focusing almost entirely on Plan 9, a Star Wars story, also known as The Rise of Skywalker, also known as Look, We Hate the Last Jedi too, Please Love Us, the movie. So we're going to start to take a little bit of a deep dive on this, and we're going to start by reading some of the reviews that are positive on Rotten Tomatoes. And Jim and I will give our little response to those reviews before we go into what we're talking about here. Review: satisfying and enjoyable. The Rise of Skywalker ends Star Wars on a safe note. So, how did it end?
Are you sure about that?
I mean, how did this movie end Star Wars? Did you feel like this ended?
No, it's never going to end. I mean, it's gonna keep going.
I feel like it stopped like mid-sentence, like Sopranos. That's how this movie's ending felt to me. 42 years ago, George Lucas created a vast world that is just like 4 or 5 planets, and the same palette of those planets 4 or 5 more times.
Mm-hmm.
That was epic in scope, with Star Wars, which became the highest-grossing independent film of all time. I doubt anyone knew the impact it would have on the world at the time. But decades later, the epic saga of Luke and Anakin Skywalker, and not his creation, Rey and Kylo Ren, has come to an end with Episode 9. So how does this end Anakin and Luke's part of the story?
It doesn't.
I mean, how does this connect to their part of the story, other than the fact that Luke was kind of in one of the movies?
It doesn't.
But I mean, Anakin Skywalker was this movie, but if you blinked, it wouldn't have mattered. But like, if you accidentally listened to somebody chewing on popcorn next to you, you would have missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how does any of that sentence make sense? An incredibly difficult task that director J.J. Abrams more or less serves up on a big plate of nostalgia. Is that really what's on the plate?
No.
It is warm, though. It's very warm, and it's very soft.
It's about body temperature.
It is about body temperature. The filmmaker bobs and weaves through 1,000 Star Wars tropes, except they spelled it troops. That's a big oops. That's a big oops there. In an effort to give fans old and new a satisfying close. But it doesn't nearly reach the heights of what Rian Johnson did with the exceptional, though polarizing, Last Jedi, and instead plays it safe at nearly every corner. So, what was safe in this movie?
Sorry, you cut out. What was that?
What was safe in this movie? John Williams music.
Yeah, John Williams
music was safe.
I think the only thing
that is Palpatine. Those were the safest things this movie did.
Hold on, I will say it's safe in terms of what they could have done with what they had. It's about the safest way that they could I'm gonna try to steelman this the best I can. It's the safest way they could have done after the travesty that was The Last Jedi. Was it good? Does that make it good? No. Does that make it actually safe? No.
No.
Yeah, it's the safest it could be.
Honestly, that will probably be enough for most fans. We're going to see. The Rise of Skywalker is a perfectly enjoyable and competent adventure with characters we've come to know and appreciate. That's a very interesting choice of word. We've come to appreciate these characters. Why not love? Why not feel like they're part of our family? Why do they only use the word appreciate? So you see, even the people who are trying to cover for this movie, they can't use what appears to me to be obvious Disney or Bad Robot press release boilerplate. Rise is obviously tailored for those who felt stung by Johnson's The Last Jedi. I'm gonna say no, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But at least this entry has some seriousness to it. We're gonna press X to doubt on that one. How about you, Jim?
No, X.
But you have to scratch the characters and droids from the last go around, and I'm not sure. Oh wait, you hid and wonder why Abrams and screenwriter Chris Terrio, Argo, but also Batman vs Superman, wrongly incorporated a fresh batch of new characters and droids for this last go around. I'm not sure we needed unmemorable characters whose screen time hardly makes an impression. Do we need to shove a new droid to tag along with BB-8, who's voiced by J.J. Abrams, by the way? I think that was a nice touch, don't you, Jim? The little hairdryer on a wheel was voiced by J.J. Abrams. Did you notice that?
No, but you know what? Did you ever watch Pee-wee's Playhouse?
Yes.
That was just the voice of Conky.
Yes, but it was done by J.J. Abrams.
But it was just Conky. It wasn't original. Right. I mean, it's go watch like clips.
So are you saying that J.J. Abrams putting a cameo of himself into the penultimate Star Wars movie he's going to ever do was ripping off somebody else?
Yes.
Oh. Or an awkward love interest for Poe. Was she, though? Was she? Or how about a Sith cult that I've literally never heard of? I mean, aren't the Sith a cult? Wasn't that the whole point of the Sith in all these other movies? Abrams and company tried to do so much with so little, when instead the movie, at its best, focused on the characters that we have grown with. But have we, though? Namely, the bond between Rey and Kylo. #Reylo. I feel like Abrams was trapped into a corner and had to desperately write his way out while trying to appease everyone. I think that's certainly what he's saying publicly. I don't believe that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Whether you liked it or not, The Last Jedi provoked a reaction and challenged the audience with bold mythologies and narratives that sought to disrupt everything we knew. So I'll say, The Last Jedi provoked a reaction and challenged audiences and sought to disrupt everything we knew. That whole bold mythology and narrative, no, none of that was bold. I've had more bold bowel movements. As for the plot of this overly complex and clunky adventure, now note, this is a positive review. No spoilers, it's no secret that Emperor Palpatine, aka Ian McDiarmid, has come back like Voldemort himself. Ooh. That's a bad comparison. To add a disruption in the Force and Rey, Daisy Ridley, now a fully trained Jedi Knight, we're going to train her now that the person who we wanted to train her is dead. That's good. That's fair. And McDermott's presence is greatly admired and appreciated here, as he's the only villain who's been consistent in all three trilogies. Also, he's been the only thing that's been good in all three trilogies. Tossed in an iconic John Williams score and vets like Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, quote unquote Carrie Fisher, and Billy D. Williams in The Rise of Skywalker. It's weird that they're not mentioning Harrison Ford's performance in this review.
Can we just call her Bela Lugosi?
Bela Lugosi. And I'm going to call her Bela Lugosi. No disrespect to Carrie intended in the rest of these reviews that we're going to read. We'll slap a giant smile on the face of all Star Wars fans. I clapped because I saw Star Wars. I know what that is.
Oh, you had that, and I've heard people say that was happening. That did not happen. There was one person who clapped twice at the beginning at stuff,
I mean,
and
that's kind of
that was
okay.
it. It was silent the rest of the movie. There was a couple of jokes that landed for people, and then I heard like scattered giggles whenever things were like being lame. And then at the end of the movie, I heard a couple of claps, but it was scattered and mild.
We'll slap a giant smile on the face of Star Wars fans, including critics. Press an X to doubt there, buddy. C-3PO, Anthony Daniels, steals his fair share of comedic one-liners. No. But Driver and Rey are the backbone of this trilogy. That explains a lot. And T.R. Tross, or Ross, or whatever you want to call it, strategically frames this final journey around their relationship, which wasn't really featured in the first movie and was barely featured in Rian Johnson's movie, but at least Rian Johnson tried to set that up. He at least tried. And I have a gut feeling it might trigger online trolls. Yes, because Reylo is stalking both of the actors in question. The FBI has been called out. Both of them have had to hire extra security at U.S. events to make sure those weirdos don't show up. Weirdos from Reylo have threatened Adam Driver's significant other with violence so he can be with Daisy Ridley. This is a thing that this movie's now encouraging. Still, you gotta hand it to Abrams, who brings this dazzle-and spectacle in one giant swoop, including a remarkable and intense lightsaber duel.
Was it a swoop or a ploop?
I think it was a ploop.
It sounded like a ploop.
And the closing moment and the final climactic battle are handled exceptionally by cinematographer Dan Mindel. No. And the last shot will bring tears to your eyes once you realize that it is the end of the line for this swath of characters. Did you feel anything at the end, Jim?
Yes. Sadness, despair, hatred, boredom.
Did you feel like you could finally go pee?
Yeah.
Of course, this being the Disney machine, they must pump out $1 billion in merchandising and licensing deals annually. This won't be the last time we step foot in the galaxy far, far away. I mean, it's on Disney Plus right now, and it's much better than this. But for the time being, Rise of Skywalker puts a tidy bow on the universe and sends us home feeling somewhat at peace with the Force. And this review was a grade B.
I will agree that it is a piece.
The piece of death.
A piece of crap.
But like, this review sounds more like a C to me than a B. This is some clear grade inflation.
Yeah. But I do like this. Imagine fucking up a franchise that is responsible for merchandising, as we know today, so hard. Imagine putting Toys R Us out of business. Imagine turning your most fanatic fans against you. Yeah, imagine. Imagine being these people.
The next one is from The Hollywood Outsider. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Movies changed forever on May 25th, 1977. The release of Star Wars, with its wondrous combination of imaginary religious conflicts and wisdom, whiz-bang special effects, and delightful cast, took the very notion of Hollywood blockbuster to another level. It also surpassed every pundit's wild fantasy as George Lucas and his merry band of space cowboys broke box office records while simultaneously building a religion and a legacy of their own. Lore swiftly became legend, and Star Wars became one of the most popular franchises in entertainment history. And with the release of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the journey of the characters carrying the names Skywalker, Solo, and Palpatine is finally complete. Again, how? We'll get to that question very soon. The biggest question of this entire film is, how do I review a movie no one wants to know anything specific about? Well, I mean, especially a movie where everything specific's already been leaked on the internet. Quite literally, anytime you begin to utter even a whiff about space magic mumbo jumbo, immediately you are met with side-eyed fierce enough to wipe out the wickedest of the Jedi Masters. So I decided, for this one time, I'm just going to keep it simple and light. There will not be the spoilers you're looking for. And you notice he's already spent 2 paragraphs of his review not talking about the movie. Isn't that telling, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Here is all you need to know about the story. Ray, Daisy Ridley. Finn, John Boyega. And Poe, Oscar Isaac. Again, no Kelly Marie Tran as Rose Tico, who actually looks like a normal person in this movie, and not a person who's been asked to gain weight to play a part, have been tasked with locating a hidden planet that contains the key to bringing down the entirety of the First Order. No. That's a big no. That's not what the plot of the movie is. No. Now led by Kylo Ren, Adam Driver, still conflicted with his connection to Rey. Did he seem conflicted to you with his connection to Rey at all in this movie?
No.
Did he seem kind of bored with it?
Yes.
He seemed kind of, I mean, isn't Kylo the guy who's nagging the chick at the bar to get her to go home with him?
Yeah.
Wasn't that his strategy for most of the movie?
Yeah. That is, yeah. Yeah. I gave you my hand once. I won't ask it again.
Struggles and pontificates on his place in this world throughout the film. Again, he didn't really struggle. He flipped a switch, but that was it. And as Rey continues to force forward, completing her journey and saving the galaxy. I mean, did she really complete a journey? Just everything was handed to her.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Rey and Kylo continue their back and forth.
Well, it was handed to her because she's the greatest pilot and the greatest fighter. I wish you could just come with us and help us because you're so great. In fact, you should stop training because you're so awesome already, Rey.
Yeah. The back and forth psychic shenanigans about who is worth redemption, which is something the movie tried to do, but the movie had too much other crap to do. So instead of focusing on, the story elements that you had from The Last Jedi and trying to use those story elements to redeem The Last Jedi, which is sort of a metatextual analysis of the redemption of these two characters, you end up with, well, we'll talk about that more when we talk about the ending, won't we? And yes, Rey and Kylo and some Samuel Kennedy returning to the helm for the final nail in this trilogy of trilogies. What an apropos choice is The Force Awakens J.J. Abrams, a director who already perfectly captured the nostalgia of the original while successfully introducing us to characters we now know and love. Press next to doubt there, Chief. After the social media beatdown The Last Jedi received.
To be fair, Poe is great.
I like
Finn
all
is
the
okay.
characters.
I think Finn is kind of an interesting character because he's a stormtrooper, and it's kind of interesting to be like, what would happen? Like, what are the stormtroopers like? Now we know.
Well,
that's kind of
there was another missed opportunity that they could have done in this movie. What they had to focus on Raylo.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. And again, you notice how it only talks for one paragraph about this movie.
Oh.
And yeah, only talks one paragraph about the movie. And
so why don't we just read that paragraph and move on? Because I don't.
We already did. We already did. But again, this is a positive review that could only talk about the movie for one paragraph. So, what score do you think this review gave this stunning and brave movie?
Considering that they're mostly talking about other movies, I probably middle of the road water.
6.5.
What? Huh?
6.5.
So that's not really middle of the road. That's
bottom third.
It's better than I thought that you were going to tell me. I thought you were going to be like, all right, 8, 9.
But film review: Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. 4 stars. A long time ago.
4 out of 5. What? Oh, out of 5. Okay.
Yeah, out of 5.
That's a lie.
A long time ago. 1977 to be exact. The first Star Wars movie covered in the cinemas.
We're going back to this trope again. This movie's great. I'm wondering, but let me talk about the other movies that came 40 years before it.
It's so weird that so many things are exactly the same. It's almost like they got a press sheet from Disney. I'm just saying. The big question hanging in the plot, the script clangs out constantly, is who are Rey's parents? No one cares. No one actually cares. I mean, we want to know how Rey connects to the broader story.
I did in Force Awakens, and then after The Last Jedi.
You cared about her parents because how are her parents how she connects to the Force?
Yeah.
Right. So you don't actually care about her parents. You want to care how does she connect to the legacy of the previous movie?
Right. I want to know why she's a Mary Sue. If there's a good reason why she's a Mary Sue, I'll take it. But we didn't get that.
But we didn't get that. We didn't get that at all.
No.
So now let's see the next one with elementsofmadness.com. The echoes of the past in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker will have you laugh, cry, gasp, and cheer like you're a kid again.
Okay, so I did laugh, I did cry, and I did gasp. I didn't cheer. No, so, I am cheering now that it's over, but it wasn't for the reasons that they wanted me to laugh, cry, and gasp and cheer.
Yeah. As written 2 years ago, Star Wars fans are notoriously hard to please. It seems as though with every new release, the fandom finds some aspect to develop disdain for, as these films are serious dramas and not space operas for kids inspired by Western serial creator George Lucas enjoyed as a child. You know what I like in my kids' movies? Decapitations, delimbings, having people set on fire with small nuclear explosives.
Having stormtroopers scatter all over the floor, pieces of them. Yeah.
A beloved mentor being brutally murdered. You know, numerous people being tortured to death. It's a movie for kids.
Yeah.
About space wizards.
Oh, and don't forget about trade negotiations.
You know, it's about taxes, bro. I mean, why would a billionaire movie writer write a movie where taxes were the major plot device? Really gets the noggin jogging, doesn't it, Jim?
Really makes you think.
Yet here we are again with a new film, which will undoubtedly inspire new hatred, because the already divisive final trilogy of the Skywalker saga ends by seeking to stick a landing rather than to tell a compelling story. Now, this is again a positive review on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm going to read that again. The final trilogy of the Skywalker saga ends by trying to stick a landing rather than to tell a compelling story.
4 out of 5.
Now, some of this is conjecture, as it's impossible to know the inner workings of returning director J.J. Abrams' Force Awakens, but considering the sheer amount of nostalgia in his film, as well as its too close familiarity to 77's A New Hope, it's not surprising the Rise of Skywalker seemed to coalesce into more or less the same vein. No, that's dumb. No. This isn't like The Last Jedi. This isn't like Return of the Jedi. This isn't like Empire. This isn't like any other Star Wars movie because it's barely a movie. Let's see here. But by hewing so closely to what's come before, The Rise of Skywalker lacks any surprise or real weight. It's not hewing to anything. It just has absolutely nothing. We've gotten to the inside of JJ's mystery box, which he has always told us has nothing. And that was his last trick. He showed us the box. He showed us the shining wrappings. He showed us the fancy decal pictures. And we said, okay, JJ, you have to come back and open the box. And this was what was inside. Nothing. Well, let's see. Let's go with, I'm not even going to read the rest of that review. It's so utterly devoid of merit. Now let's look at Salon. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker review.
Salon. Hold on. Salon, a newspaper that glorifies pedophilia.
Okay. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker review.
Was that Salon or? Yeah, it was Salon. Okay, carry on.
It was Salon.
Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker, return to form. Return to form. Brings the saga to a fitting end. Again,
are they
where's
saying
their ending?
Are they comparing diarrhea to a firm bowel movement? Is that what
no,
the form is?
Because diarrhea doesn't technically have a form.
Well, it's a puddle.
It does have a volume, though. It does have a volume.
So are they saying that? I'm trying to steelman them because I'm fair. So they're saying that like it's returned to form because the first one was poopy, and then the next one was diarrhea, and that didn't have a form. So they're like, oh, we're going to make a turd again, but we're just going to make a bigger turd.
There we go. There we go.
Okay.
There we go. That's the analogy they're going for.
I think so.
If you dislike The Last Jedi, like I did, you'll probably like, but maybe not love, The Rise of Skywalker. If you dislike The Last Jedi and you like The Rise of Skywalker, you're not paying attention. This is actually a worse movie than what Rian Johnson did, for reasons we'll get into here in a little bit. And if you like The Last Jedi, this review might not be for you. Or to quote Jake Skywalker, this isn't going to go how you think. Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, is a visually lush and action-packed as you would expect from any Star Wars movie. I mean, look at all these vistas, Jim. Just look at them. Look at all the ground these vistas are breaking. But, I mean, this time there were actual vistas in the movie. You know, vista as a geographical feature.
Mm-hmm.
The dialogue is clever. No, it's not. The pacing is brisk. No,
to say the least.
And best of all, it leaves audience members with the inimitable glow that can only be felt after being immersed in a genuine, entertaining story. We weren't immersed in a story, but we'll get to that. Because it recaptures the magic of the best Star Wars films. No. And avoids the pitfalls of the worst ones, particularly The Last Jedi. Also, no. It works as both a fitting conclusion to the Skywalker saga, no, and a popcorn flick. The main flaw is that, perhaps because it had too much to do and very little to do it, in which to do it, the movie sometimes feels rushed, like it's packing in more than it can handle. This puts in the same league as 2019's other big blockbuster, Avengers Endgame. Except Endgame had Infinity War before it.
Mm-hmm.
So Endgame didn't have to pack in so much shit in so tight of a space.
But they just wanted to give us a bunch of cool stuff.
Right. I mean, I don't like Endgame as much as Jim, but Endgame was fine. It was competently structured. It, in my opinion, went flabby in some places. I prefer Infinity War. I prefer Infinity War, but the thing about Infinity War is it had 20-something other Marvel movies, or however many there were. I don't even remember anymore, and it's not important.
22.
With connective tissue that built to that point.
I think so. I could be wrong.
This movie was supposed to have 2 movies worth of connective tissue. And technically like 2 side story movies that supplied a little bit of connective tissue. This was completely disconnected from everything. So that's like some of the reviews. And again, these are positive reviews, and these positive reviews can't even talk about the movie they're talking about.
Well, I think this did have a lot of connective tissue.
No.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about toilet tissue with poop on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's more of a medium than a tissue.
Oh.
So let's talk about how we rank after this movie the 9 core movies, because Jim didn't see everything. So I didn't even see the core.
I didn't even see all the core movies. I'm missing one.
So I'm going to talk about how I rank the 9 core movies, because I've seen all of them, and I'll even go more in depth after Jim talks about his, and I will talk about how I review this in the spectrum of all the Star Wars movies. So my number 1 is still Empire. My number 2 is A New Hope. My number 3 is Return of the Jedi, but 3, 4, and 5, they're there. They do what they need to do at that point in the saga, but they don't do a whole lot more than that. Return of the Jedi is basically a curtain call. Everybody's taking a bow, one last final lap, because the entire movie is that throne room sequence with the Emperor. Like, nothing else in that movie really matters. That's the whole dramatic engine of the movie. The Phantom Menace and the...
Well, Leia in a slave outfit.
Well, I mean, that was entertaining, but that could have been cut. Like, that throne room sequence was the movie. And that's fine. It's fine. We all had an enjoyable ride to that one dramatic point, and then we rode out into the sunset with our heroes being triumphant, not knowing that 42 years later, everything they did would be invalidated and undone by a talentless hack who had already ruined Star Trek.
Wait. All right, hold on. Were you talking about George Lucas just then, or were you talking about JJ?
I'm talking about J.J. Abrams, because at least when George Lucas did the prequels, he didn't undo the good in the original trilogy. He didn't say, oh yeah, all that galaxy at peace, everybody's been saved. Yeah, no, all that's undone. The galaxy's back in turmoil again, and all the characters who had a happy family life, home ending, friendships, all that's ruined. Yeah. The Phantom Menace did what it needed to do to set up the same but different. And The Force Awakens does everything to do with the same, and we apologize it won't be different like the prequels. Then there's Revenge of the Sith, which is the last of my middle tier movies, because with Revenge of the Sith, it was a movie George Lucas wrote for his capabilities as a director. And when you view it in that context, you can see the movie is better. Now, George Lucas, the script writer, is not as good as George Lucas, the director, so there's a lot of script decisions that a better script writer wouldn't have done. And then we go into the 3 bad movies. The Last Jedi, which is actually up on my list now because of this movie. Attack of the Clones, which is utterly incoherent. It's barely watchable.
I'm going to say it's unwatchable. I've tried 2 times now. No, I tried 3 times. I tried watching it with the riff tracks. Not even Mystery Science Theater 3000 can make it watchable for me. And I can watch Mando's Hand of Fate when they do commentary, but not this.
Coming in dead last on my personal rankings is Plan 9, A Star Wars Story. So, of the Star Wars original core saga movies you've seen, Jim, how do you rank it?
All right. I have a tier list that I was making while you were reading one of those things. I'm going to show it to you now.
It's almost like you planned this.
Well, I was planning it while it wasn't planned before the show. It was during. So for my S tier, and this I put them in order too. So from reading, so my S tier is episode 5, which is Empire Strikes Back. And then I have Return of the Jedi second. So
interesting.
Yeah, and
interesting.
Just because I thought A New Hope was a little bland. And I think it was mostly because George Lucas is a terrible director, and they saved that movie in post, in editing, in the editing room, which everybody agrees that's even that we're behind the scenes. We're like, yeah, the movie that George Lucas made was not good. We fixed it. You're welcome. So A tier is A New Hope. B tier is The Force Awakens. I thought it was good, and I thought, okay, they're gonna make her a Mary Sue. They're hinting at there's a reason why she's a Mary Sue. But we didn't get an explanation. So I would normally bump this down, but I don't think anything else under it was any better.
The spot.
Yeah. So Rogue One, I put it in there just because it was in the tier list along with Solo. So Rogue One, I put C. It's just a fan service movie with a cool ending. I don't care about anything else in that movie at all. I don't care about any of them. And then F tier, I have The Last Jedi. I thought that was better than The Phantom Menace. And Attack of the Clones, which I still was, which I had to think about for a while. Was that movie actually worse than what I just saw? And then I came to the conclusion. And what made me decide that it was actually better was that they didn't put Bela Lugosi in it. After Bela Lugosi died,
we will get into this digital necromancy here in a little bit.
Yes, so I have to say that all of them, Rise of Skywalker's the worst. I did not watch Solo. I tried watching Solo, and I was like, I can't see what's happening here. It's too dark. I'm giving up. And
it's
then
because the movie couldn't afford to have lights.
Yeah,
in that sequence.
And I've tried, like I said, 3 times to get through Attack of the Clones, and because I can't, I just never got around to watching episode 3, and I don't really have. And sure, everybody tells me it's the most watchable one, but that's not how you pitch a movie to me. Like, Jim, you have to watch this movie. It's totally watchable. But there's lots of watchable movies out there that I'd rather watch.
Jim, I'm gonna serve you a pizza. It's digestible. You can chew it, and it will come out as poop.
Yeah.
Do you want to eat that pizza?
You're basically offering me pineapple pizza. I'm okay. There's other pizzas that I could enjoy that's a lot better. You know.
So my full review of all of the movies. So Empire Strikes Back and New Hope, when you incorporate the other movies, Rogue One comes in at third because Rogue One has a lot of interesting ideas about the Star Wars universe. A lot of ideas that when it came out, I thought, oh wow, they're going to maybe branch off, maybe do like a wushu martial arts flavor of Star Wars.
No.
Or maybe focus on this, or no. We're maybe going to get some of those ideas on Disney Plus. So remember, get Disney Plus to get the Disney Good Boy bucks. Otherwise, you won't be able to buy your Air, owned by Disney Air. So it's important that you love the mouse, or the mouse won't allow you to breathe.
The mouse is basically Palpatine.
No, because we enjoy Palpatine. Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace, The Force Awakens. The animated Clone Series movie comes in at 7 on this extended list. And it's a kid's version of a Star Wars movie. Revenge of the Sith, Solo clocks in at number 9. The first TV Ewok movie, I don't want to actually Google the name of it or the second movie, which comes in at number 11, but those are both better than The Last Jedi, because those at least tell a coherent story that's not trying to be offensive. The Last Jedi doesn't really tell a coherent story, but somehow J.J. Abrams told a less coherent one. And then there's Attack of the Clones, which is completely unwatchable. And then there's The Fall of Skywalker, which, again, is a very unwatchable movie. It's very bad. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit about a spoiler-free review of this movie. So we're going to talk about the things that are absolutely amazing in this movie. So let's talk about the first one first, because we're going to talk more about the second one after the spoiler-free review section, at which point in time there's going to be a review of the John Williams soundtrack for this movie. But spoiler alert, John Williams is a living legend in the music industry, and people will be playing his music for decades after his death. Because
and the soundtrack was great.
Yeah. We'll go into a little bit more detail on that. And then we'll talk about Is Cats Better before we go into the nuts and bolts with a spoiler review. So there'll be 2 segments of the review before we get to the spoilers. So you will have the opportunity to get out before spoilers happen. So
I don't know why anybody this is the movie that that hinges on a lot of spoilers, that I was like, I don't care if it's spoiled.
And like we talked about the leaks before we saw this movie, and I was still disappointed. This movie still found ways to disappoint me, but
I was expecting nothing, and I'm still disappointed.
So let's talk about the consistently greatest thing in all of these movies, Ian McDiarmid. How great was his performance as Palpatine in this movie?
Amazing.
Literally amazing. Like, everybody has been given some degree of garbage. Like, Empire was well written. Empire was well written, and the original script was well written after the edited version happened. So those were 2 movies that were fairly well written. And he's the only person who's able to elevate the script. Sheev is the man. Sheev is the guy who raised it all, because he understands this was a movie inspired by B-movie serial schlock. This movie needs to be 100% on point camp performance, and he elevates this. Like, this is like what's that one drunk actor that's a B-movie actor that Red Letter Media always mentions? Cameron Mitchell. This is like a character Cameron Mitchell in his early, not consumed by alcoholism days, would have played in a terrible B-movie. I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is that kind of a performance, and he elevates that performance, and he uses that performance to elevate really dumb things in the script. Like,
are you saying that The Rise of Skywalker was the Tums Festival?
I'm saying that I did take some Tums after watching The Rise of the Skywalker.
Okay.
So, like, it's like, Sheev said dumb things in this movie, but I wasn't mad at him. It's like, Sheev, I know you're just a horrible, cheesy B-movie villain. So for you, this is all fine. This is all appropriate, what's happening. there's the John Williams score. And I want to say also, all of the actors gave a good performance. But other than Ian McDermott, no one was able to elevate the material they were given. But they tried. Would you say that's a fair assessment of how the actors did in this movie?
Everybody gave it their best.
But this was just garbage.
Yeah.
And there's the sequences with Leia, the digital necromancy, which is appropriate.
She gave it her best.
Because, I mean, she's dead.
Yeah.
Literally showing up when you're dead is the best you can do.
Yes.
But I think it's really appropriate that we have digital necromancy in a movie where Sheev Palpatine is basically a necromancer. Mm-hmm. He's basically a schlocky B-movie necromancer. So it's good that we have a zombie in this movie. And if we cut out all of Carrie Fisher's scenes in this movie, nothing is taken away from this movie. Like, you could have just had the one particular sequence, which we'll get to in the spoiler review, that impacts both Rey and Kylo, but you don't even need her in that scene, and then everything would have been great. It would have been just as good, and we wouldn't have defiled Carrie Fisher's memory. And I say this as in, even in Carrie Fisher's most drug and alcohol-addled period in her life, I did not feel as bad for her as being associated with this movie. This movie was terrible. This movie made me want to do drugs. And I'm very anti-doing drugs. And I wanted to drink alcohol, but I'm right now on a weight loss regimen, and I didn't want to drink all those calories. Even though I had the calories, I probably could have had some delicious booze for this movie. So, Jim, explain to me, you said you couldn't follow what was happening in this movie, and we literally had the spoilers that detailed every plot beat in this movie.
No. It was even worse. So we went through the plot leaks, which that's how the movie panned out, 100%, right? About 100%?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Then I went through and watched the Midnight's Edge review, where they went through the thing and explained it plot beat for plot beat. I watched the movie, and then afterwards I watched a bunch of reviews on it, spoiler and non-spoiler, including our good boy, what the fuck? Why can't I never remember his name? Comic Pro Secrets guy.
Oh, Ethan Van Sciver.
Ethan Van Sciver. Listen to his review, and I still don't know what happened. I can't explain to you what happened in the movie, except for exposition leads to a thing where they go somewhere, get a MacGuffin, which leads to expositions
You're very close.
Oh.
And here's how this works, and I'm going to try to break it down as close as I can from memory. Action set piece leads to exposition. Exposition leads to a quest for a MacGuffin. They get to a planet where the MacGuffin's supposed to be, but then they have a reversal of fortune. But then another character shows up and says, we couldn't find the MacGuffin here, but there's another MacGuffin here that might help you find the first MacGuffin. So then they go to find the first MacGuffin, but the second MacGuffin, the replacement MacGuffin, but then they have another action set piece. And the action set piece leads to a reversal of fortune.
And there was like 6 MacGuffins.
Yes.
So this happened 6 times.
Yes. So the action set piece leads to a reversal of fortune, and that reversal of fortune leads to a character development moment, which then leads to the MacGuffin. But then we have another reversal of fortune, which leads to another action set piece, which leads to a quest for another MacGuffin. And that cycle repeats until we get to the climactic final battle with your boy Sheev and all the starships versus all the Imperial starships for the end of the movie. And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's the movie. And literally nothing in the movie matters. And there's sequences in the movie that not only could have mattered, but should have mattered. But to talk about those, we definitely have to get into our spoiler territory. So, Jim, let's talk about how John Williams once again hit another grand slam home run of making a movie soundtrack.
Yeah, so like we do in every episode, though we've been kind of flaking out on it. Larry's good at watching a lot of movies, so am I, but he's better than me, and vice versa for music. So I've been trying to tune him into more music, but I think there was fitting to, instead of pick out a new album that he hasn't heard, to listen to the album that was associated with this movie. This is probably one of the few things about the movie that was good, was John Williams' return. And he fucking nailed it, hit it out of the park. There's one particular part of this soundtrack, which is great, which is one of the final things where we go to Palpatine's lair. And he's doing the whole, like, strike me down thing. Where they played something that sounded very much like what is the song from Phantom Menace? You know which one I'm talking about?
Duel of Fates.
Duel of Fates. They had like a Duel of Fates sounding part. I thought that was fucking great, and it fucking
So like in John Williams' music, he kind of blended all three trilogies' music together a little bit. So what we're saying is the John Williams soundtrack album is the climactic ending of the trilogy of trilogies. So in this album is the only thing that's achieved the goal set out for this movie. And literally John Williams could have written this music without having a movie around it. I mean, it's great. John Williams is great. We're going to miss John Williams when he's gone, because I think they might maybe, when they relaunch Star Wars as a movie brand, say, listen, look, I mean, it's either we get you or we get Danny Elfman. I mean, Danny's fine and everything, but we need to get you to make the soundtrack. I mean,
I love Danny Elfman, but it would not work for Star Wars, as Family Guy has actually pointed out. One of their most astute moments.
Yeah. But yeah.
I'm definitely going to list this. I might buy this one on vinyl. This might be the only thing that I might buy of Star Wars after this is all said and done, because it's actually pretty good.
Yeah. So now we're going to get to our provocative opening question. Is Cats better than Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker? I have not had the opportunity yet to see Cats. I was kind of hoping that was going to be in our review after this review, but Jim saw it because
I like watching garbage.
Why did you go after this piece of garbage first? Why did you do that? Because we were originally planning to do this yesterday, but Jim said, no, I'm going to watch Cats. So why was Cats something that had us delay getting a really hot take out in the early rush of hot takes?
Well, because I didn't realize it until after it was all said and done, but I had bought my ticket and it was for like a 10 o'clock showing. And I was like, oh. And I still had one more movie to watch this week. And I was like, I better get most I can out of this month. So I was like, what's on? Cats.
Oh no.
So I do like musicals. And
I mean, look at that picture of Rebel Wilson's character. That's really bad.
That was my face for most of that movie.
I mean, I'm not alone. I'm probably going to see the movie because I've heard how terrible it is. And I'm like, I'm stupefied to imagine if it's actually that terrible.
Okay, so let's talk about the good stuff about it. So most of the things about this movie are great. Do you like Cats? Did you ever see the play or seen adaptations of the play?
I mean, I don't really like a lot of contemporary stage plays.
Okay.
But I mean, Cats is a iconic contemporary stage play, so I can appreciate it for its place in the canon. I can appreciate it as a culturally significant piece of the art form.
Okay. I can too. It's one of my least favorite Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals. It's one of my least favorite musicals, period. And for those people who go like, I don't like musicals, every time I ask them this question, they'll concede like, oh, okay, some musicals are good. So it's every time someone tells me I don't like musicals, like, oh, you didn't like South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's some musicals I like. I just don't like Broadway. Okay. That's a different thing. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I do like some, not all. There's a lot I think are overrated. This is one of them. But I don't think it's bad. I think it's just like he had a bunch of poems that some author wrote and was like, hey, let's make a musical out of them. And try to put these desperate kind of poems together in a story, which is basically, hey, we're going to have a musical and everybody has to be their best. Otherwise, you don't get to go off into the Haspatafratine layer, whatever. You basically don't go to kitty heaven and get reborn as a better kitty. So everybody's trying to die so that they can become a better kitty in another life. And the person who gets to decide is old Deuteronomy, who is actually played by a female in this movie, which is fine, because old Deuteronomy doesn't really have much to do in this movie other than getting kidnapped and then going, "You're the one." And old Deuteronomy is played by Judi Dench. All the people in this movie, all the performers nailed it out of the park, with the exception of Rebel Wilson, who played basically Rebel Wilson, fat, slutty, sassy girl.
Again, she was a fat, slutty, sassy Nazi.
She was a fat, slutty Nazi, sassy Nazi. She was a fat, slutty cat who even spread her legs in this movie and scratched her inside of her leg, like she's a baseball player.
A comment from Micro, who's kind of busting our balls about being another negative Star Wars review. I can respect you for busting our balls on that, but yeah, Chicago is a great stage musical and a great adaptation to a movie music.
Okay,
Chicago's great. I can enjoy that.
But everybody gave it their best. The direction was great. The cinematography was great. However, the costume and CGI work were
horrific,
so bad that it just made everything not matter. So the trailer dropped for this movie, and it was,
and the entire internet said, "Oh my God, what is this?
No, what is this nightmare fuel?" And because everybody looks terrible, everybody looks awful,
except for that 5% of the internet that's saying it's so close to my fantasy.
I think even furries were having nightmares about it.
Well, I mean, it was divisive among furries, but there were some people who said, "Hey, we finally have representation in a film."
If they had just saved the money, skipped the CGI stuff regarding how they looked, this movie would have saved a bunch of money and been a good movie. But they didn't.
Or what if they did a traditional animation like they had talked about doing several times?
That would have worked too. Like actually had like a 3D, like an actual 3D animated movie.
Or even a 2D
like Shrek or hand drawn. That would have been even better. I think that would have worked.
Yeah.
I think that would have been less macabre. It would have made the macabre parts of it a little less macabre, even though this wasn't really macabre. Either is a stage play. So the problem with it was you can tell that they touched up the parts for the next batch of trailers that came after that initial trailer because of the backlash. They touched up all the close-ups anytime the camera was in their face. They made it look passable, even though it still was horrifying.
On the left. So the one on the left, they fixed that face.
Yes. They fixed all of the trailer faces. They fixed those. However, they didn't fix everything. So anything that was kind of backed away, there was multiple times where you saw cats with a mat kind of line around their body where they didn't actually blend them into the scene correctly. There were parts where there was one particular one where I noticed it the most, where you could tell that they didn't render every frame. They just rendered every other frame. So they were running along a train track, and as they were running along a train track, the characters were about 15 frames a second or 17 frames a second, while the rest of the movie motion and the background and scenes were 25. And it cut. Do you ever play like Quake today and notice that like all the characters are like 6 frames? It almost looked like that. There was lots of times where they were floating above the air.
Like you're having a stroke, basically.
Yeah, where their feet are not on the ground because they didn't render it all the way. They weren't done yet. There was parts where like the side of their body was like vibrating because it was having like just physics problems with the fur. Judi Dench's face looked like it was cropped out in a really bad Photoshop program and then placed onto a cat's body. And it was horrifying. And every time they did a close-up of Judi Dench's face, I was laughing, which in turn made the people next to me start laughing.
I'm looking forward to seeing this now.
Yeah. It's not. You can. What ended up happening was they released a trailer. They said, "Okay, we'll touch it up," and they touched it up, and then they were like, "Look, it's going to cost a lot of more money to touch it up. Let's just make it look passable to a retard." Or I'm sorry, we can't say that word anymore. An exceptional individual. So that an exceptional individual won't notice the problems and then push it out, pretend this doesn't exist, and hopefully let the Rise of Skywalker and all the talk about that completely cover up what happened here, which is unfortunate.
And also the Jumanji movie.
If they had just not have done that and just brought out those weird 80s costumes, this would have been a decent movie. And some of the things that they did with the movie, like there was some changes they did with it, like the part about Mr. Mistopheles where, he in the original play, he was dancing around like a fruit. However, in this one, he's trying to bring back old Diogenes because he was kidnapped by the villain of the movie, which I can't remember his name because they all had fucking weird names. The music would come to a stop because like he was trying to use his magic to bring it back, and he was unsure about it, and so like he would do it and it wouldn't come back, and everybody would be like, "Oh, well, let's try again," and they'd bring back the music again, and it would start building up, and then not there type of thing, and that was a really interesting take. However,
let me ask you.
Hold on.
Let me get.
There's another change that they did with this that was really bad, where they just inserted a bunch of cat puns. Larry, ask me if they said, "Who let the cat out of the bag?"
Here's a better question: how many times did they say it?
One. Well, they did once each.
Okay.
But ask me if they said if they asked who let the cats out of the bag.
Yeah, they of course said that.
Yes.
I'm not even going to ask you because I know they're doing all of that.
How about
they made a hairball joke?
The hairball, of course, they did a hairball joke.
They made a 9 Lives reference.
They made it. Well, that's part of the show too. That's the whole plot of the movie is that Diogenes has lived to be 99 because she's lived 9 lives.
Yeah.
All right, but cat's got your tongue, catnip. Everything is there.
Fever?
No, cat.
They should have done that.
Yeah,
that would have been good for Rebel Wilson, actually.
Yeah, hot tin roof, all of that stuff. It's all in there. All of it's in there. Every pun you could possibly make. However, there's one more problem.
Okay.
There's a part where Rebel Wilson, because she's a fat cat, she's a Gumby cat. She sits and she sits and she sits and she sits, and she eats. And she's a fat cat. Guess what she likes to eat? Mice.
What is mice?
And not just mice, but also cockroaches. Can you guess what the cockroaches look like?
What do they look like?
They look like people with roach bodies and human faces.
What?
Yes, and they sang and danced while they ate cake. And Rebel Wilson ate the roaches.
What?
Yes, this is a thing that actually happened in the movie.
So Jim,
guess what the faces look like?
They
look even worse than the cats from the original trailer.
Oh God!
It was
Jim,
nightmare fuel.
So Jim, this nightmare fuel movie, though, you're saying is better than Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
Why are you saying that?
Because everything else was about everything else. Everybody gave a shit except for the CGI people.
Well, I mean, the CGI people clearly did not have the time or the budget to do the movie appropriately.
I think they actually went bankrupt because it was the same production company that did Sonic, the original Sonic.
No. They didn't go bankrupt. It cost them too much money to work out of Canada.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Canada's bankrupt, so.
So basically, the actors cared.
The director cared.
Director cared. They kind of mess it up by making it too much like a Broadway play. So that was a mistake in the adaptation, but otherwise the adaptation was fine.
Yeah. Oh, and the dancing and the choreography were great too.
Yeah.
But I think that what it boils down to is like, if you go see a Broadway play, everything is one take. If someone messes up, it's part of the show. Mm-hmm. However, you can tell that they've...
then you tell your friend, hey, I was at a show at Cats and like one of the performers tripped, fell, and accidentally puked a little bit. So they made a hairball joke out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how they react to it. That's part of the show too. I remember actually seeing a Broadway show. I can't remember what it was. But it was at a place where there was an airport next door. So every time a plane flew by, they would stop and freeze and wait for the fucking plane to fly by and then carry on, including the orchestra. Or no, anytime there was music, they kept going. But there was a part where like someone did a jump, and right when the jump happened, they stopped. And so like the person landed and then fucking ran back and then was like ready to jump again. And then after he jumped about where he left off, where they stopped, that's where everybody started again. So there's things like that where you can be like, okay, that's whatever. But because they had multiple takes and anytime anything fucked up, it just didn't make it magical. And that's a problem with a lot of ballet film. It's like unless you go and see it live and knowing that everybody's giving it their all because they know that if they screw up, they're screwing up the show. There's stakes involved. So that's why Broadway is a different medium than film.
And why Broadway actors in certain respects are better than film actors.
Yes, and that's why when they come to film, they end up being better, like Kevin Spacey and
Mark Hamill was a classically trained theater actor, as was John Boyega. I think they both have probably done plays together in London, even.
There you go.
So, we warned you that there was going to be 2 segments before the spoilers, and this is segment number 2, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah. Here we go.
So now we're entering the spoiler space about the end of Skywalker, and I want to start with the Reylo stuff. I want to talk first about that in the spoiler section. Why did Ben Solo have to die?
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. I got to get the spoiler picture going.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. We got the spoiler image up now, so we are good to go.
So why did Ben Solo have to die at the end of this movie?
Because movie.
No. So there's a classic old Hollywood thing that even when a bad character is redeemed, they still have to die as punishment for their sin.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Vader died at the end of Return of the Jedi, even though he was finally redeemed. But what we saw with Vader was, planetary genocide. What we saw with Vader was, murdering his underling. What do we see Ben Solo do bad in these movies other than killing Han Solo?
Oh, he was slaughtering people in the war. He sat around and watched he was involved with the Planet Killer.
Did we see him kill people in the war in these movies?
Yeah. In the very beginning of this movie.
But those are other evil people. And
he was fighting. He was fighting the rebellion. Remember?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, who was he fighting?
Not at the beginning of this movie. He was fighting other Sith loyalists.
Oh, and
so that doesn't count.
Okay.
Yep, they were in Stormtrooper armor, so that doesn't count. So all we know is he killed his dad.
Okay.
And he flung people around a room a couple times, but didn't kill them, and destroyed some property.
Yeah.
So, what did Ben Solo do deserve to be actually killed at the end of this movie? Nothing.
No.
More importantly, we have Ben and Rey confess their feelings to each other, and then Ben dies. So what is the point of almost the exact ending of that movie, that sequence happening, and then they die, other than trying to be cheap, emotionally exploitative, and manipulative? Nothing, right?
Oh, no. There is one thing. Because if they didn't, they would still have to have FBI people following them around because of the truly toxic fans who were insisting that they become a real couple in real life.
Yeah. So
I think it was just there to pacify those people.
Here's how I think this movie came together. After The Last Jedi happened, the people who actually have hard numbers for Disney, the super hard numbers, the super duper sensitive corporate intelligence numbers, knew it was bad. So they had an intern get a list of everything people hated about Disney Star Wars, and they made a one-page thing. They told J.J. Abrams, you and the guy who made Batman v Superman, oh dear God, we're doing this, make this list into a movie. And that's what this movie was. The reason the movie felt so completely disjointed and stupid is because it was built around saying, well, yeah, that thing in The Last Jedi was kind of dumb, wasn't it? Oh, and that thing we did in The Force Awakens, we thought that was stupid too. We were just pretending to be exceptional individuals when we did that in that movie. I mean, is there anything that really animates this story other than that to you, Jim?
No, I was kind of checked out. I was just more kind of laughing at what they were trying to do.
Oh no, this was the alien autopsy for me. I had to get my crack team of people who died in a horrible plane accident to help me assess this. So there's also weird little emotional theme moments. But instead of these being consistent themes over 3 movies, they say, Rey, don't be afraid of who you are on the inside. So let's talk about that. So in The Last Jedi, Rey was acting like a Sith throughout most of the movie. You'll agree, right, Jim?
Yes.
She took the fast track to the Dark Force anus in The Last Jedi, didn't think twice about it. Because she wanted to find out who her mommy and daddy were. Even though that wasn't her concern in the previous movie, it was suddenly super serious and important in this movie. But
no, it was important because I just watched that again. And she remember she always wanted
important. Go ahead.
I was going to say because in that movie, everybody was constantly wanting to go back to Jakku, and it was pissing off Finn. The reason why Rey wanted to go back is because she didn't want to leave there. She also didn't want to take the job with Han because she was afraid that if she left for too long, then the people who left her there would come pick her up, and she didn't remember who dropped her off or picked her up.
But that was stupid because, as was pointed out in The Last Jedi, and one of the few sequences that really worked in that movie is like, listen, you know they're not coming back for you. I know. Because Kylo Ren is the guy nagging the chick in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, your parents abandoned you. You're worthless and you don't matter to anybody. But you know what? You matter to me. That's why I'm giving you my attention. But so now...
So what you're saying is Rey listens to Tom Likas. Or...
Well, no, Kylo is Tom Likas.
Yeah,
Ben is Tom Likas in this scenario.
Okay.
And Ben is...
Except he's not very good at it.
He's not very good at it, no. So Ben, in a metatextual level, represents the entitled Star Wars fan. And Rey represents the new Star Wars fan. So at a metatextual level, there's a meta theme that, this is about new Star Wars fans and old Star Wars fans finally coming together to make a good Star Wars. That is a theme of this movie. So how do you think this movie tells you that?
Just explains it to me in exposition.
Exactamundo. It's like, oh, well, you have a forced dyad. Something that hasn't been seen in generations. What? What? Instead of, I don't know, having Rey and Ben have a back and forth, having Rey and Han Solo have a back and forth about his son Ben, where Han says, listen, he went wrong. Here's this thing that happened. His mother went one way. She went that way with Luke. I went a different way. And he got torn up and broken up inside. And, the arc for him is in the first movie, he's on his quest to be super evil. And in the second movie, he's super successful at being super evil. And in the third movie, he's super evil until Rey stabs him in the abdomen, as opposed to stabbing him in the heart, which would be metaphorically about, love. of how the new fans have to stab the old fans in the heart with love so that they can heal them and that we can be together. But no, stabs them in the gut. So even when you're doing a metatextual theme, you can't even do the theme inside the movie correctly. Because I think J.J. Abrams says, like, this is what the studio wants me to say in this movie, so fuck it, just stab him wherever, I don't care. And as soon as she healed him, he was like, oh, well, now I'm going to be the sick, lovesick puppy following her around. Does that make any sense to you about why that happened after she healed him?
Why would it make sense?
Just consume product and get excited to consume the next product?
I think JJ just didn't care.
No, he didn't. He had given up somewhere in the production process of this movie.
Yeah.
And I think probably when they called in like George Lucas to help him consult on it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the point where he gave up. Why did Rose Tico not have anything interesting to do in this movie?
I think he was just. I think that was just a character just being disposed of, and I laughed. That was the part that I laughed at when she was like, "Oh, I'll just stay here" or whatever. I was just like, "Okay."
I mean, she is
into
a very
the trash she goes.
Yeah, but I mean, you've seen her, you know, like in real life scenarios on the internet. She's a charismatic actress.
Mm-hmm.
She's funny. Like, she was used terribly in The Last Jedi. So if we're going to redeem The Last Jedi, or at least take bad things from The Last Jedi and reverse them, why not give her something useful to do in this movie? But
I think that was like a middle finger to Rian Johnson.
It was. But I'll give you another thing. Did any character in this movie do anything?
Palpatine.
Other than Sheev. Sheev is the only character who had any agency or action or direction in this movie. Everybody else is being pushed around by Sheev or by the events. No one is acting heroically. I mean, Poe's just basically floating around, though. He's not really doing anything.
Well, once he became general, as one gets to be general.
Yeah, I mean, Jim's already a general because he's had dozens of friends who've become generals because their friend made them a general, and that's just how that works.
Yeah, that's how the military works.
But let's get to that point about Poe and his becoming the leader of the movie. So, The Last Jedi is all about him understanding the difference between the best fighter guy and being the best fighter leader. And while The Last Jedi doesn't do it well, it at least makes an attempt. Rian tried. So, in this movie, you should have had Poe be the de facto leader. That Leia is so focused on training Rey, the last of her life force is slowly slipping from her body, that Poe has to do more and more. That Poe has to make the decision between going out in the field, helping Finn and Rey, and, you know, being the commanding officer of the whole rebellion. Right? Shouldn't that have been what his arc was in the movie? Wouldn't that have given Rose Tico something interesting to do? Instead of just, oh, I'm not going to do anything in this movie, but I am here. Just to say I'm here and collect my check because I did sign a contract to do this movie. I mean, shouldn't that have been what happened in this movie?
I really don't think there was nothing they could do. I don't think there was anything they could do.
No.
I mean, there was nothing they could do to make it any better. I don't think there's anything they could have done to make it any better.
There's several things they could have done to make it any better, but hear me out.
No, I think JJ was doing basically what I was doing with this movie, is using this dumpster fire to roast some chestnuts. Some delicious chestnuts.
But no. There were elements of a story here that could have been made into a compelling story that could have made people happy. So, like, Poe's arc from the last movie. He's realized he has to become the leader. And he realized what it takes to be a leader. So we have Poe in his transition and leader. And Leia is slowly starting to fade out. And there's the ticking clock.
Leia, in quotation marks.
Bella is slowly fading out as putting that cloak closer and closer to the face. And so he has to make the decision on going out on missions or running the operation. Then Sheev Palpatine announces the whole universe is going to end in 18 hours, which isn't how time works in outer space, unless you do what I say. I'll like send all the starships to destroy everything. And so he then takes the lead, even though that's not the good tactical decision to do, because he has to be in the front. And then wouldn't that have been something good for Rose to do, for him to say, look, I know you're the head of the engineering section, but I need you to coordinate everything. I have to be on the field with Poe and Rey. That's what's going to give us the best chance. And then he comes back once Leia dies, and then his whole entire character arc for the second to third of the movie, would have made sense.
Did you ever see Axe Cop?
I did. Axe Cop is a brilliant thing. The guy who writes Axe Cop is a friend of mine on what?
Who writes it? Or
the guy who wrote it. The guy who the guy who drew it, excuse me. Yeah. I talked to the guy who drew it on Twitter frequently.
So here's what I thought about the first 15, 20, 30 minutes of the movie ish somewhere. Is I felt that I was watching a premise like Axe Cop, except instead of getting like the really creative, interesting kid with really funny ideas, they went to Ralph from The Simpsons.
No, Ralph would have made something better. Ralph would have made something better than this.
Or just the kid who was like, eating paste in the back of the room with no good ideas. And was just like, so then he goes and he gets this triangle, and the triangle tells him where to go. And there's like other triangles. And so like they say, hey, we have to go get this triangle. How do we get this triangle? And then like his friend comes over and goes, we could use this to get the triangle. And so they go over to get the triangle, but there's no triangle there. And then they fall into quicksand. There's a big party there, and everybody's like having fun at the party. And then the bad guys show up and they shoot up the party. And so they fall in quicksand to get away. And then they find a sword that tells them how to get to the other triangle. And so they go over there and there's giant waves. And so like some people on horseback were like, yeah, we'll help you get there. Well, fix your shit. This is something that I would expect like a 5-year-old to write. And then grown people are like, hey, people will think this is funny. But it's not.
No.
It's just bad.
This again.
Am I right though?
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But it's more the whole point of the story was to poke fun at The Last Jedi and try to do half-hearted attempts at their themes. But now that we mention the people on Endor, who are stormtroopers who are hiding out on Endor for some reason, former stormtroopers, they talked about how they had an armed uprising against their commanders because they didn't want to gun down a planet. Wouldn't it have been great if Finn's uprising in the very first movie inspired them, and he finds out that he's not alone, he's not some goofy joke character, but that he's actually inspired dozens of...
Yeah, they were like, wait a minute, you're Finn too, blah, blah, blah? Oh my God.
Wouldn't that have been a great moment in the movie?
But we didn't get that, though.
Wouldn't that have then built upon Finn becoming a general and feeling like, I deserve this, I'm the guy who could do this, I've helped save all these people? Wouldn't that have made something compelling and interesting in this movie? But no, we have to get the triangle so that we can get to the magical lightning rock to fight we can't Batman.
We can't get the triangle, so we'll just get the sword that tells us where that is. And then that'll give us the triangle. Uh-oh, we broke the triangle. Don't worry. Someone else had the triangle. We can just use the line from that triangle to get to this place, and then we can get our own triangle. That'll tell us to get to this other place. But wait, we have to talk about it first. Hey, let's bring that dead character on for no reason. Hi, dead character. How are you today? I like pizza. That's an appropriate response to the question I just asked you. Well, let's go get pizza. This is the movie we got. This is the movie we got. And then Palpatine happens, which salvages it from being like the worst movie of all time to just being the worst movie this year.
Well, it's not the worst movie this year, but it's the worst
movie,
Star Wars.
What movie was worse this year? Hustlers? Come on. Come on.
Right now, I'm totally in my game space about Star Wars. Let's talk about the necromancy of Carrie Fisher.
Yes, because that was... I laughed every time she said something because I was like, you asked her that question, and that was not even like a question a normal person would ask another normal person. You only asked it because that's the only way you could word it so that you can get a response from the archive footage. And then when they gave the scene where they hug, that was directly, they ripped it directly from The Force Awakens. It was the same.
It's the same exact shot.
They didn't reskin it. It's the same one. They just cut it out of that movie and put it in this one.
Her outfit is different.
Is it?
Yeah, her outfit's a little bit different, so they reskin the outfit.
It was the same hug.
It was the same hug. It was absolutely the same hug. 100%. So why did they give Carrie Fisher's family money by basically dragging corpse through trash?
Because somebody had to train. Someone had to train Rey.
Why?
Because someone had to.
What did her training add anywhere to the movie?
Well, now she can make rocks float around her.
But she did that at the end of The Last Jedi. And she did that at the end of The Last Jedi by herself.
She needed a little bit more training to beat Palpatine, because Palpatine was, not gonna lie, badass. But then again, we didn't need that because all the Jedis backed her up. So,
but also more importantly than that,
yeah, she was completely, she was useless. I'm trying to defend this movie and I can't.
But more importantly,
I'm not.
Palpatine.
I'm trying.
Palpatine,
because you know me. Because since the start of this episode, I'm like, let's try to steel man everything, and I can't.
No, because it was digital necromancy. And also, they didn't intend in any of these movies to bring Palpatine. There's no way that you can mentally do gymnastics on that.
No.
And they made an entire video game and comic book branch all about how Palpatine decided to, you know what? I'm just going to destroy most of the Imperial sections of the galaxy to punish them for us losing. So why would Palpatine do that if his master plan was 40-ish years later, haha, I've got a giant fleet of Death Star tech-enabled Star Destroyers. And also, isn't that stupid? Death Star tech Star Destroyers? Isn't that dumb?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't the whole point of how a Star Destroyer could blow up a planet because it had all these extra space to have super-duper death lasers?
Yeah. But no, they wanted to have a horse penis in it.
They wanted to have a horse penis.
That's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, this is an animal penis. It even had the little red rocket at the tip. You didn't notice that, did you? Well, it's probably because I just got done watching Cats.
Yeah, hold up.
Okay.
Libertarian clips. I see here things we started though with stuff that was terrible in the last 30 minutes, and we're gonna get to the very end of. Believe me, but there's so many other things in the autopsy that are more important to get to. So, Billy D. Williams was fine in this movie. I don't think he had the health to do this kind of a movie, but he was fine in this movie. But what was the point of his character being there other than that's Lando Calrissian? I know who that is.
Yes, and I thought it was a little jarring when he was like, "I'm Lando Calrissian, and I did this." It's like, yeah, we know that. We know. We've seen.
The characters in the movie said that.
Yeah, that's what I said.
The characters in the movie said that.
Yeah.
So basically, the movie was saying. Not only was this movie saying The Force Awakens was kind of retarded, The Last Jedi, was kind of exceptional. The Last Jedi was kind of exceptional.
I still like The Force Awakens. I just can't like it anymore after these two movies.
Yeah, this movie was saying even this movie is kind of exceptional.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
It was a
post link
blatant,
here.
like, please clap. This was a please clap moment.
But now I'm going to get to one of the really deep fundamental flaws that I remembered now I wanted to mention. So I'm posting that in the doobly-doo for you to put the link up here. So Bryan Sanderson is an iconic fantasy author. And Bryan Sanderson actually got brought in to finish a book series for an author who had no intention of finishing it, and he died. So Bryan Sanderson has lots of good rules on writing and how you tell a good, effective story. So I'm going to talk about Sanderson's laws, and then we're going to talk about how those apply to the movie we watched. Bryan Sanderson's first law of magic. An author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the reader understands said magic. And magic doesn't have to be literally magic. Super science is magic in this case. The Force is magic. Super duper martial art. All of it's magic. So, did you understand how any of the stuff that was happening happened?
You mean the Skype calls and the healing
Any of it.
things? No.
Or they can fly now. I mean, you understood that because we live on a world where jetpacks can kind of sort of work.
Yeah.
But even that didn't make sense because they launched them into the air with a catapulting motorcycle.
Which I didn't understand. Like, why? They have a jetpack.
That literally defeats the point of having a jetpack. So, and I'm going to read the text here from this wiki. If characters, especially viewpoint characters, solve a problem by the use of magic, the reader should be made to understand how the magic works. Otherwise, the magic can constitute a deus ex machina. Ideally, magic is explained to the reader before it is used to resolve a conflict. Now, this movie sort of did that. They sort of set things up. Much like a sword or a large sum of money, magic is a useful tool. Understanding the tools available to a character helps the reader, or in this case the viewer, understand the character's actions. It avoids questions like, where did he get that? Or how did he get that? Mysterious magic, or soft magic, which has no clearly defined rules, should in genre fantasy not solve problems, although it may create them.
Oh, here we go. Hasbro toy line, catapult motor trooper, jet trooper not included.
Yeah.
That's why it was in there. Now we know.
Yep. Soft magic in genre fantasy is usually used to create a sense of awe and wonder about the workings of it aren't known to the reader and most characters. Brandon has said that J.R.R. Tolkien and George R.R. Martin's use of magic is a good example of a soft magic system. Hard magic, on the other hand, has rules explicitly described by the author, meaning the reader can understand the magic, so solving the problems with it doesn't seem to be mystically make everything better. Instead, it's the character's wit and experience that solves the problem. This makes magic a tool which can be used to solve problems and enhance the story. I.e., Matsu Jr. and Melanie Ron, according to Brandon, written this way. So, first law of magic is an author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the reader understands it. So basically, magic did everything. I got a magic triangle that takes me to the magic planet where the magic man is, who's the source of all the evil.
No. Who accidentally brings me to the magic sword.
That takes me to the...
That breaks my robot so that I have to fix it in order to get him to tell me what's on the thing so that I can go get the magic robot.
Yeah.
With a magic language.
Exactly. So Sanderson's second law of magic. This is very important. The limitations of a magic system are more interesting than its capabilities. What magic can't do is more interesting than what it can do. And in some of the interviews, they said Rey basically can do anything. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful that we could just write her and she can do everything? So, limitations. Great limitations on magic systems will do many things. They will, for example, create struggle. It'll make characters work for their goals. And if the magic system is limited, it'll make the writer and the character have to be more clever. Sanderson offers his own alamatic steel, which is a MacGuffin, and iron as examples. They allow you telekinesis with a few limitations. The characters can only push or pull directly away or towards themselves, and objects must be made of metal. This forces characters to work harder, encouraging better writing. An excellent magic system will create tension, as the outcome is not obvious and makes the whole scene appear more dramatic. For example, Superman fighting an enemy is not very tense, but Superman fighting an enemy with kryptonite is a lot more tense. So, Ray's magic was unlimited, so nothing was interesting she did. But everybody was talking about how great she is. And an addendum to the weakness and cost. Weaknesses and cost alike make magic systems more interesting. Weaknesses are generally harder to keep sensible, and kryptonite examples become a staple of easy storytelling. So let's use the scene with Ben Stella. So Ray basically was healing mortal wounds like it was nothing. Ray didn't seem more wounded than Ben was when he got stabbed through the gut, which would have cut several vital organs with a lightsaber, and Ray just healed him like it was nothing. So why did he die? We don't know why he died. We don't know why he had to die. So it makes that scene uninteresting. It removes all tension. It removes all stakes. Nothing meant everything.
Didn't he got shot with the howitzer in the first movie?
In the first movie. And he struggled with that.
Yeah.
So J.J. Abrams understood this in the first movie, but he didn't. Well, he kind of understood in the first movie, but he didn't understand in the second movie. And now the last one that's pretty important: expand on what you already have before you add something new. So what all did we add new with the powers?
Everything. I can do everything.
They could do everything. Exactly. So Ray was uninteresting, not just because she was barely a character, and in this movie, she almost was a character, but because the Force meant nothing because it could do everything. Or, as a character from a good movie said, when everybody is super, no one is. We should do a retro review of Treasure Planet, because that's actually a very underappreciated movie. We should look at that. And in the new year, we're going to be doing a lot more retro review stuff. Let's see here. What else do we think about? How dumb was the design on the Sith dagger? She's just holding up a dagger. That looks stupid. Let's give it another thing that points to a thing on the mountain. Why would that be a thing on the dagger? But why though? Why would that be a thing on the Sith dagger?
Well, like when you're cutting things, you just want to get a perfect measurement on the angle that you're cutting.
You have a tape measure?
Well, it's a compass.
Yeah.
Which is even more useful. I mean, because you got to stab in the right angle, right? So you have to be like, okay, we want a 90-degree angle, so it's about there. So right?
But yeah,
I mean, as you would when you stab someone, like, hold on, I want to make sure that the knife goes in at a 45-degree angle.
And let's talk about a Sith wayfinder. Why do you call it a wayfinder? Well, it finds the way. Isn't that kind of stupid? Nobody at the table, when they decided that this was the MacGuffin, said, that name sounds kind of dumb. And I know we have to give some money to somebody else, but just call it a holocron. A holocron is the thing that's in the Star Wars movie, and a holocron doesn't sound stupid. Wayfinder sounds like something you tell a little kid. And there's the general bad aesthetic that Bad Robot does with all of its alien makeup. So, all the aliens look terrible. But, I mean, they didn't look terrible
except for the ones that they recycled from other movies.
Yeah. Although Claude was amazing. There was a giant penis monster throughout the whole movie. That was the thing that was in the Falcon in the initial sequence that was doing the repairs on it. The giant penis-looking thing with tentacles sticking out of its head. You don't remember that, or are you blocking your mind out of that? Jim, did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm thinking.
Okay.
I don't remember. I don't. What? When was this?
Give me a second. I will get a picture of him for you to show the audience so that they can remember too.
If I see it, will I clap?
No, because you don't know what it is right now.
Oh, but once I see it, then I'll recognize that.
And then you can clap.
And then I'll clap.
So yeah, you can pick one of the pictures out of the Google search to share with the audience, and you can also clap now that you see it, and you know what it is.
I'll have to open up. Oh yeah. He got a hug at the end. I remember.
Yeah. Hug the penis-shaped alien. That is not creepy or weird at all.
There we go.
That is not uncomfortable.
Don't you just want to hug this thing? I mean, it's just so huggable. I know they're gonna make plush versions of this soon, so you can hug it.
They already have.
Are you? Please tell me you're joking.
Just a second. I think I was joking, but I don't know. They're fan-made ones. They're not official ones yet.
Oh.
Yet.
Do they have lesbian ones that'll kiss?
Well, yes, that was a thing that was in the thing. There was the first homosexual kiss in a Star Wars movie. I for one, love the character of lesbian number 1.
Yes,
and I'm glad that we can finally see her and lesbian number 2 kiss.
I was going to say, because I'm a little bit more of a big fan of lesbian 2, because lesbian 1 is a little overrated. And lesbian 1 didn't even get the same amount of screen time because lesbian 2 was standing there.
Exactly.
And then lesbian number 1 comes in. So I mean, like, she's a little overrated. And they should have made the other one be lesbian number 2 because she wasn't even the first one that showed up on the screen. It's a little bit disingenuous.
We could be more equal, Jim. We can make them lesbian number 1 and lesbian A.
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
That would be more fair.
Be more fair.
And that's one of the things they have to say.
Oh, we got porgs. Yes, we got the porgs again.
We did.
We got more porgs. Because everyone loved them from the first movie.
Let's talk about Luke Skywalker actually not being ruined in this movie. How did you feel about that?
No, he was ruined. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, let me rephrase that.
I fucking laughed. And I was not the only person that laughed when she threw the lightsaber into the fire and he grabbed it.
Oh, in my theater, they clapped.
Me and a couple other people laughed. Audible laughter. I think I had a much more jaded audience before the movie started. He was like, someone's yelled, "Get ready for suck, geeks."
So on my way into the theater, I said to a group of people, we were at like the little automated concession machine. I said, "You guys ready for Exegol?" And like there was like the father was like confused at me, like his teenage sons behind me kind of gave me an awkward grin on their face.
Hold on, I have to tell my a very 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 short story. After Cats was over, I was sitting with a group of people, and after like all the old people left, it was just us. I was looking at my phone, like, is there a post-credit scene? Because as I normally do during the credit scenes to see if I need to stick around or not, because I'm tired of waiting for nothing. The girl was like, what? Turned to her boyfriend and was like, "Well, that was horrifying." and he was like, "Yep." And so we were all, and I was like, "Yep, that was horrifying." And she was like, "I was like, I only came here because I heard it was going to be a dumpster fire, and the trailers were a dumpster fire." And she was like, "Yep, that's why I'm here." And so we started talking about some of the things that were terrible about it. And I was like, and it's like Rebel Wilson still has the same character. I mean, she was even the same thing when she was a Nazi, and they were like, "Yep, she was." And after like they were talking to themselves, and I was like, "All right, well, I got to get ready because I'm gonna go." I was like, "Well, that's one dumpster fire down, one to go." And she was like, "Oh, you're gonna go see Rise of Skywalker next too?" Yes.
We found people like ourselves.
Yes.
And that's what matters.
I should have got their phone numbers. Like, we should hang out.
So, what did you
My
think
kind of
about their giving Poe a backstory for no real reason in the? Well, I mean,
he
that's
doesn't
not
need one
entirely
though.
true. That's not entirely true. They did get there was a reason, so we would sort of care when that planet blew up, but not
Yeah.
really. That's like Jim. If you go to a 7-Eleven and like somebody drives a Mack truck through that 7-Eleven, would you feel bad?
No.
Because there's another 7-Eleven a block away.
Yeah.
So it was more cheap theatrics of, oh no, we killed that character that this other character that you sort of likes. Just kidding, they're going to come back for the ending.
By the way, here's another problem that I had with it. Well, not really a problem, but there was a cute little alien robot fixer guy thing in it. And I totally got the whole like Jar Jar racist thing from it.
Yeah.
Do you know what race that it sort of seemed like it was lampooning?
No.
It reminded me of a Filipino. Because I work with people from the Philippines all the time. The language that it spoke sounded very Filipino. It seemed like a caricature of a Philippine, and it was also very short.
Huh.
And I couldn't help but go like, this seems like a Filipino, like that's making fun of the people from the Philippines.
Huh. That's weird, but okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't cute. It was just kind of like, you're just putting this in there so I'd think that it's cute. But I don't think it's cute, so it's just kind of off-putting.
So, Finn was force sensitive in the first movie, wasn't force sensitive barely in the second movie, and now he's like super force sensitive in the third movie. But why though?
Because they needed to have a connection, and they didn't think of something smart like, oh, he was the person who inspired us to rebel against us.
Yeah,
against us, and then we're going to stop being stormtroopers too.
Yeah,
they couldn't think of something interesting like that, or maybe they did, and then test the normies in the test screen, or the SJWs in the
maybe that was George Lucas's script idea, and then that guy came later and they made the final.
Oh, do you think that's where the little quasi racist little alien came from? Okay, you know what? We haven't made fun of people from the Philippines yet. We should put this little Jar Jar character in there because this is gonna be the central point of the entire film because it's the more funnier characters we've had in any of the other films. I think I went a little bit too far in places.
So we talked about how Poe's character arc didn't go anywhere.
I don't think it was I don't think it was racist. I just think it was very, very unfortunate. Just like I think of all the other things that were labeled racist in the prequels. I don't think they were racist. I think they were just.
We talked about how Finn's character arc didn't go anywhere. Let's talk about the battle for Exegol. Oh no, we can't land our troop carrier on the ground, so let's have horses riding on a ship. But why though?
I was laughing at that part. As soon as I saw the horses riding around in the spacecraft, I was like,
but why though?
This was I was hoping when I saw the trailer and I was like, that looks ridiculous, that there would be a reason why that was, like maybe they were landed on the planet, you know, and they were not ready to take off, and they were going to try to stop it from taking off. No, it was that stupid. It was that stupid.
And also, well, the ships are so big they can't take off the planet by themselves. So why would you build ships that big then? That seems like a very stupid thing to do with, a military.
Yeah, why don't you just build them in space?
Yeah, that was a scene they probably wanted on the cartoon, and they just didn't do it in the cartoon. So let's make something dumber here.
Yeah, I mean that's what they also did in Star Trek, the motion picture.
So yeah, Palpatine then at one point in the end just force lightnings all the ships in the Rebel fleet.
Because he was always that strong, right?
Right. So why make a fleet Death Star tech ships? Just use your force lightning. Because if you don't know what magic could do, I'm the Emperor. I could just blow up a planet with the force from across the galaxy. Yeah. I mean, if magic could do anything, why not? I'm just blow up a planet across the galaxy. So why do you need an empire?
Because he wants the final solution. I mean, the final order. Because Trump bad. I think this was Trump bad. Was this Orange Man bad?
No, but as Micros mentions, in a comic book that's related to the new Disney canon, he magically groped Shmi Skywalker and impregnated her with Anakin. So he could be Trump.
Okay.
It's hard to say.
I'm done with Star Wars. I'm just done with Star Wars. I'm just gonna watch the original 3 movies and then just pretend everything else. And I'm sorry,
you can watch
sorry,
The
Rep.
Mandalorian.
Nope, sorry. Well,
You can watch The Mandalorian.
Okay, I'll leave the Mandalorian just because it's new and it's not horrible. But I'm gonna
And, like,
I'm gonna throw
whenever
out the
it
Clone
references-
Wars, the Rebels.
The
I don't need
Clone
any
Wars
of that.
TV show.
Don't need any.
The Clone
of
Wars
that. I don't
TV show
need
is
it.
good.
I don't need it. I don't
Clone
need
Wars
it.
TV show is good though.
It's
But
connected
yeah,
to garbage.
Kylo and Rey are basically cousins.
I'm letting the hate flow through me now.
I'm
I'm gonna strike down these movies. Sorry.
So what's funny is in the beginning of the movie, Sheev tells Kylo, "Kill her," and then she says, "Bring her to me alive." Then she says, "Kill me." And it's like, you fool! Now that you didn't kill me, I'm actually more powerful. And then she kills him, and then nothing happened.
Yeah. That didn't make any sense to me because he was like, "You're gonna strike me down, and then I'm gonna take over you." But it's cool because then you'll be like the most powerful person in the world. But it's like, well, then I won't kill you. And then he's like, "Ha ha! You fell right into my trap."
What? I mean, like, at least it was like a giant magic ritual, right? So, like, that kind of could have worked if, it wasn't so poorly written.
It reminds me of that comic where he's like, "Herder, I'm an idiot. You're retarded." Joke's on them. I was only pretending to be retarded. It sort of reminds me of that. It's like, I'm going to bring her here and then have her not kill me. I'm not going to kill you because then you'll be powerful. I was only pretending to be weak. Like, what is happening
It's like
here?
two little kids. It's like two little kids on the playground going, "Pew! I shoot you." No, it bounces off.
Yeah.
But it's free and then bounces back at you. Wait, that's not how physics works. But we're like 10. So, well,
or better yet, it was like like when I remember there was like some debate with some idiot back in the day when someone I used to like watch, and he said something stupid, and he was like, "That's stupid," and he was like, "Haha, just testing you."
Yeah, I was only pretending to be exceptional. And let's get to the two really stupid things at the end. When all the spirits of all the Jedi said, "We're with you, Rey. We've always been with you." Why? Why do that? And not show those people, number one. Because showing those people would have looked stupid, but at least would have given you some emotional connection versus, "Hey, Hayden, I know you're doing some independent movies now, but could you just do like an Anakin Skywalker voice for us? You're going to be like maybe a minute tops."
Yeah,
of
I thought
recording.
the Ben saying Ray was like, where did you clip that out of? I'm pretty sure they dug through like his old like movies and was like, where he was like, "Oh yeah, it was like a ray of sunshine." He said Ray. Well, cut that out and put that in there, and then people will be like, "Yeah, they totally got someone to say Ray that sounded just like him." It's like, no, all he said was Ray.
Yeah.
That's all.
But
Obi-Wan said was Ray.
So
old Ben, rather.
now there's the Legend of Korra, which is terrible. And in the Legend of Korra, they had the Avatar fight the anti-Avatar. And the Avatar destroyed the anti-Avatar by summoning all the powers of the Avatar's past to form a super duper death laser to blow up the anti-Avatar. And so they ripped off the Legend of Korra for the climactic destruction of Sheev Palpatine. But you know what would have been fun? Is if the person playing the hero were just as hammy and just as cheesy and just as schlocky. At least then we could have had something enjoyable. Like, you ever watch like Dr. Horrible Sing Along, which is like a series of video things with Neil Patrick Harris on it? They like have a big hammy, cheesy, big chin superhero character in that. Like that's what you needed. If you're gonna make absolute trash schlock, just go all out with it.
Oh,
And at least
spoilers.
have fun with it.
I forgot to put the spoiler image back up. I just kept showing penis alien.
Oh, I mean, Claude is, one of the redeeming parts of the movie. But then the final ending
The
where
true ending, you mean?
where she says Rey Skywalker. Why does her having a last name matter? Why does her having a people matter? When has it ever actually mattered to Rey in any of these movies?
Why not just say like I'm Rey Palpatine?
That could have also worked, but let's put that to the side for a moment. So Rey was an orphan on a desert planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like she lost her family, and she was really torn up inside about that. But that's not the same as her needing to, have a last name. But more importantly, why does she get to have Luke's last name? Why does she get to have Leia's last name? Why does she get to have Ben's last name? Even though it's not his last name.
No. Well, I think that would have been a better thing. It would have been like, what's your name? Well, maybe the
Rey
guy who
Solo.
saved my life. Yeah, Solo.
And said, yeah, he told me the
That would
story
make
of
more
how
sense.
some military recruiter just gave him that name because he didn't have any people. I mean,
because Skywalker was more important.
yeah. And also Libertarian Clips, Sheev kind of won, but also he started the Skywalkers. So family isn't unimportant to her, Micro, but there's a difference between family being unimportant and having family as a theme in these kind of movies is it's always about your family of choice. So, like, Leia was a mother to her. That would have worked if Carrie Fisher wasn't a necromantic ghost.
Wait a minute.
So,
Wait a minute. Did they really write this movie, or was this Molyneux? Is this a whole movie about defooing and having family of choice? This is
well, family of choice has been a popular social entertainment literary theme since the 70s. But like, it would have worked if she actually had a bond with Luke, but they didn't do that in The Last Jedi. Or if she had a bond in Leia, which they couldn't do because Leia died. So they needed to pivot from making this the Leia movie. But instead of doing that, they just said, oh, well, I mean, yeah, she's dead, but we could just redo her in CGI. I mean, we did it in Rogue One, right? So, yeah. And it was okay because she saw Luke and Leia nodding approvingly as Force ghosts. What? And, like, I'm guessing Rey lives in the Lars homestead now?
Why not?
But why, though?
Why not? It's
I
a
mean,
free.
why
It's a
not?
free.
But,
It's a free
but
house.
why?
It's a free house.
No, that's not how houses work.
Yeah, it is because once you die, your house is just up for anyone to grab.
No, that's not how houses work.
That's how I got my house. I just knew someone who died, and it was very sad. And so I buried their knives into the ground, and it was my house. That's how land works. Have you ever read Rothbard? Jesus. Learn about homesteading, statist.
So Jim, is there anything else terrible about this movie that you think we've missed? I mean, everything's terrible.
I have much more respect for Kevin Smith.
Why? I mean, there's so many reasons.
Here's why. So, Kevin Smith had this plan to make a trilogy of films. Right. It was Tusk, and he thought Tusk came out really well. And then he made Yoga Hosers. Yoga Hosers didn't come out that well. Everybody hated it. And you know what? Do you know what Kevin Smith did? He said, "That was terrible. I'm not going to make part 3. And I'm going to try to be a better filmmaker." He didn't succeed with Reboot.
But he at least said, "I'm going to try."
No, what he did was he said, "This was not a good plan from the beginning. It just needed to be Tusk. I was wrong for making Yoga Hosers. I'm not going to try to make the third in the sequel. I'm going to respect my fans' opinions on this and do something that they want." And didn't make it and did something else.
So
that's what Disney should have done. They should have said, "Oh, The Last Jedi was bad. Let's just focus on The Mandalorian."
Well,
we're not going to make episode 9.
Well, no, that gets into corporate politics, and I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of the corporate politics side of that argument. But basically, the plan is The Mandalorian and the new TV series.
That could have been corporate politics, but it would have been the right thing to do. As Finn would say, "I did it because it was the right thing to do."
But I mean, you could actually, now that I have seen The Rise of Skywalker, you actually could make a movie following The Last Jedi. I mean, fans would be annoyed. You could even say, well, you didn't really believe nobody heard you. The First Order was jamming the base.
No.
You know, or we were dealing with the crisis of all of our children being stolen.
To quote the great philosopher Gonzo, the Marleys were dead to begin with.
I mean,
that was all over the place, wasn't it? It's like, wait, Charles Dickens. Wait, what?
But you could have made something. There were elements of this movie that could have been built into a good script, but we have to basically shit on The Last Jedi. We basically have to begin with. Yeah, we basically have to say, you know what? We also think these things in The Force Awakens were stupid. It's like the Disney live action films. The Disney live action films are all about how Disney is insecure about their previous art. And they're making reactions to say, see, we also think this was inappropriate, this thing we did in the past. So we're going to recontextualize it now with our current values that are never going to change or never going to be viewed as inferior values. Because that's how values work. Right, Jim? No, that's not how that works. No. And this movie was reactionary to another movie and not reactionary to another movie. And they're like, okay, so did you ever play the KOTOR video games?
No, I don't know what that is.
So the Knights of the Old Republic video games were two iconic games for Star Wars. And they're not that many iconic games for Star Wars for video games. But the second game came out of a place of creative hate. The lead writer didn't really like Star Wars and also didn't really like the direction Star Wars was going in. So he created an antagonist in the game who shared all of his hatred for the Force and what the Force meant to Star Wars, and built a story around that character trying to influence the hero to not be the hero of this story and to let the story die because it's bad and it's going to lead to bad things. And, you know, that's the kind of reactionary storytelling that's good. Because you also, in that context of that story, you as the hero had the opportunity to reject that path and, you know, forge a good heroic path. But there was a story where this villain very competently explains, you know, the Force is terrible. It's horrible and it ruins us and it ruins things. So we shouldn't follow it. We should let the Force die. We should murder it because it manipulates everything in the universe. And that's a good reactionary storytelling. This is, please love us. Please love us, young people, so you can continue to consume product. We don't want to have to deal with the fact that you don't like us because then you won't consume product. So It's reactionary, but not reactionary in a way that creates art. It's reactionary to make a product. And it's not reactionary to make a good product. It's reactionary to make a product that a bunch of people disconnected from reality, like those reviewers we were talking about at the beginning of the show were. And that's why The Last Jedi is the worst Star Wars movie. Because Attack of the Clones was indulgent. It was horribly paced. It jumped all over the place. It was hard to follow.
It was cheesy.
But at least George had a vision. He had a creative thought. The Last Jedi had a horrible vision. Something that nobody watching the movie was gonna like. Although, to be fair, maybe 25 to 30% of the people didn't like it. But Rian Johnson had the courage to make that movie. And it's a movie that we're still talking about 2 years later. And it still draws passionate emotions out of it. This is just a lifeless nothing. It's a zombie. It's as much of a zombie as Carrie Fisher was in this movie. That's why this is so terrible. So we had originally planned to bring somebody on as a guest to talk about this movie, but I think what it's going to be a better use of getting a guest in is to talk about the current state of Star Wars, like all the Disney era of Star Wars, and talk about, is there a road forward for Star Wars? Or is Star Wars going to be a digital zombie that's just going to keep coming up and shambling forward? I mean, like, Kevin Feige is going to start helping them make Star Wars movies. And I mean, you know what could happen? Kevin Feige could basically say, we're going to do the extended universe movies, but like we did it with the Marvel movie. So it's going to be a movie that's kind of sort of like 2 or 3 different extended universe books. There's enough little Easter eggs and things the fans will be happy about, but it'll tell our kind of focus group tested 4-quadrant basic blockbuster movie formula. That's what I think the future of Star Wars is going to be, because that's what The Mandalorian is. And we'll bring in our guests to talk about Disney, Star Wars, and the transition that's already occurring. So next week's show is going to be our last show for 2019. So on that show, Jim and I are going to talk about our candidates for the worst movie of the year, even though we may get a couple of more worst movies of the year in before our first show in January.
This is like the day after my birthday. Something may happen. We may not do it. So
Oh, so you mean next week's show we might have to just punt it or do it at a different time?
We may. We'll see. If you see an announcement for the episode, we're good to go. If not, get ready, because we may, or we could push it back for a day. I mean, because it's the day after my birthday.
Right.
I might want to go out and do stuff for my birthday, so. And I don't want to have to be like, oh, I'm hungover. Let's do a show or anything.
You see, that would have been the show to talk about cats.
Hungover.
So that's our Star Wars The End of Skywalker review. But this isn't the end of Star Wars. What's going to happen? Kathleen Kennedy's going to go away. And there's going to be a new person who's going to have all these movies ready to go that Kevin Feige and Favreau and Filoni put together. The 3 Fs are going to save Star Wars. And that's going to mean the stockholders are going to be happy and everything's going to go up. And we're going to get basically the Marvel movies in Star Wars.
So what you're saying is no one's ever really gone.
No one's ever really gone. That's right. And Bob Iger even said, we might go back to Star Wars saga. Like, for example, a friend of mine on Twitter said, you know what? Make the extended universe movies, just recast the main cast actors. I mean,
they did it before.
Would you have a problem with a new Han Solo, the guy from the movie Solo, and a new Luke Skywalker as young people adventuring after Return of the Jedi?
You know what I think might be a better idea? is to explore the extended universe and some of the more
Well, I mean,
esoteric stuff out there. That's much more interesting. I mean, the Guardians of the Will stuff is the most interesting thing of all the new Star Wars stuff.
Like,
and the Mandalorian.
And the Guardians of the Wills isn't even new. It's been a thing George has been kicking around the whole time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's new in terms of a movie about it. Like,
right.
I think the reason why the Mandalorian is so interesting is not because Favreau is behind it. I mean, that's an aspect of it. I think it's more interesting because, like, that's a whole different world we never really truly explored. We've topically talked about it. Yeah, we've touched it with Boba Fett and Boba Fett's dad, but not really.
And a couple other characters, but not really. No.
Not really. And they didn't even wear their Mandalorian stuff in the prequel, so I mean, it kind of doesn't count.
And you know, the Sith and the Jedi used to be one order at one point in time. Wouldn't that be an interesting movie to explore?
Yeah.
How this whole thousands of years of conflict started. A movie series about the Jedi and the Sith splitting apart. Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Isn't that where they had the lightsabers that had a battery pack attached to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to do that necessarily, but basically that idea of how good and evil separated. That could be an iconic mythological story that Star Wars is good for telling. But that's not the sort of thing that a room of corporate hacks are going to be able to do. And also, let me ask you an even more provocative question about this movie. Who other than J.J. Abrams could have done this? Who other than J.J. Abrams could they have gotten in after they fired Colin Trevorrow? After they fired Lord and Miller, after they de facto fired the guy from Rogue One, who else would have wanted to work for Lucasfilm to fix this mess?
I don't know. It would be interesting to see Robert Eggers do a Star Wars movie.
I mean, you know what?
Make it a horror film.
You know what, though? Like, seriously, like, Kevin Smith is a very uneven filmmaker. But you know what? If you tell Kevin Smith, listen, we're going to get
he's a better writer than he is director.
Right, no, but like, if you say to Kevin Smith, look, we're going to get you a producer to make sure you don't get yourself in trouble, but you get to paint a corner of Star Wars. It's going to be Kevin Smith's corner. You're going to paint it. I think Kevin Smith would bring his A+ game to do that.
After he cried, of course.
But
it would have been a real cry, though.
No, it would be a legit real cry. Like, if I was, you know, I'm starting a project where I'm going to be doing like a crowdfunding comic book, but like, let's say this was like, let's say I had done this like 5 years ago, and I was at the point where I'm like trying to sell spec scripts in Hollywood, and I like did a couple of backup scripts for like some shows that didn't get produced, and then they said, hey Larry, we want you to be a writer on Star Wars. I would be legitimately crying. And then I would work there, and then I would really cry for real because of how terrible it is. I would be like John Boyega. I would be saying, listen, man, I just want to catch some wines. What are you doing here to me? But yeah, we're going to get our guests. I'm going to talk to them about possibly on and doing like a retrospective on Disney Star Wars, but Rise of Skywalker, worse than Cats, because at least the people who made Cats cared. This was a movie that the people making it, from a director level, from a producer level, from a writing level, they didn't care to do a good job. The actors, who had been basically jerked around for all the movies, they tried. They tried their hardest to do something worthy for this final film. And they weren't able to pull it out. Ian McDiarmid said, okay, so basically you're wanting me to play Cameron Mitchell. I'm barely going to leave a chair throughout the whole movie, and I'm going to be an evil satanic necromancer. I can do that. And John Williams is saying, like, I already wrote, like, music for, like, every book in the extended universe. I have it on a shelf in case you ever want to make those into movies. That probably actually is true. But I mean, yeah, that's what the Rise of Skywalker was. It's like, we're very, you know, reactive. We feel ashamed that you don't automatically love us. And somebody brought up an old article and I couldn't validate it, where like Timothy Zahn, who created Grand Admiral Thrawn, created a lot of the iconic elements of the extended universe. He said, you know what we could have had in the Star Wars movie? This was before The Force Awakens come out. A movie where there's actually a good, positive family relationship, where, you know, like Luke has a son or a grandson, and there's a strong family bond, and that strong bond is the thing that drives the movie forward. And I like saying, yeah, why didn't we have that? Why didn't we have that? Like a strong bond. Like originally, Rey and Kylo were supposed to be brother and sister. What if about a love between a brother and sister that was so strong that it defied the light and the dark side? I mean, but also, why do we have to have it be about another person falling to the dark side and having to get out of it? Why did we have to do that again? That is the tombstone marker for this point in Disney Star Wars. Why did we have to do this again? And we'll never have an answer. So that's our show, folks. That's our show. And we'll see you in a week unless Jim's hungover. If Jim's hungover, we'll probably do it either the day before or the day after. And if we can't do that, then it'll be next year.
Yeah.
And next year we'll talk about the worst of 2019.
So I'm going to go and watch Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Which is better than this movie.
I don't know about all that.
No.
Well,
it's better than this movie because Ed Wood cared. He had passion behind what he made. He just wasn't any good.
It's also so bad that it's good. Not just so bad that it's just not good. All right. Yeah, it's okay. I'll take it. It's actually a better movie.
Yeah, it's actually a better movie.
Well, it's not a better movie. It's a more enjoyable movie.
It's a better experience.
Yeah. Hail worms.
Hail worms.